Okay, let's hope everything works. Recording has started. Okay, okay, let's do this. Okay, so yeah, day two. We're gonna be doing push forward as advertised. So initially, like the first day, we were talking about what was it, like basic shapes and things like that. And today it was meant to be like a continuation where we're talking about um like 5 blocks. Today, like day two was meant to be 5 block theory, but I was just thinking to myself, and I was thinking, like, okay, at the current skill level of armor, I think most people are kind of got the hang of 5 blocks already, and I don't think that's actually going to. We might do it in the future eventually, but I was just thinking, what can I do that is going to help the most amount of people, right? And not just. So yeah, I want to make these slides as helpful as possible. And I was thinking, what can really help people in their games? And I thought, well, push forward is probably something that is a really important thing to get the hang of and get a baseline understanding of. So I decided, okay, we're gonna. This isn't meant to be like day 4, day 5 from my plans, but I thought I'll ditch everything in the front and then we'll do the things that is actually going to help the most amount of people. Okay, keyboard doesn't work. Up, down, left, right, no. There we go. Okay. All right, so push forward. So okay, the title of the first slide is already wrong. But okay, so why do we need to learn push forward? I think the order of these slides is actually wrong. So okay. So why do we need to do push forward? Um, we do when we are. Why do we learn push forward? Because usually when you're folding, I assume. So the baseline assumption here, by the way, is that people do know how to fold. If I do go over that very quickly though, so you fold with Suji, Kabe, and most importantly, the Genbetsu tiles, right? So the priority should something go along the lines of like the tile Kamicha discarded, then other Genbetsu, then whatever Suji Kabe defensive techniques that, you know. I'm the baseline assumption here is that we're all good with these things and we all know these things and how to fold. If you don't, then you know there's a lot of good resources out there that go through these things, so feel free to have a look. But yeah, so when we are folding, when we are full Betari, we don't generally tend to deal in. It is like if you do deal in while full folding and you've made the correct folding decisions, you've played the safest possible tile and you sort of still dealt in, that is bad luck. But it generally doesn't happen. Like maybe once every 100 games, right? Something like that would happen. Generally when we're full folding, we don't deal in. And generally, if we're full pushing, because let's say we have like an extreme example would be you have a Yakuman hand, right? You have a Yakuman Tenpai ready to win. You're not really gonna fold that in any scenario. Like you shouldn't fold that in any scenario, right? So if we lose while pushing a Yakuman hand, we don't really feel that bad either, right? We feel that bad about it. So we don't, or at least should not, be taking the fights that are actually advantageous to us, and we don't deal in while we're full folding. But the key idea here is that when is it advantageous for us to push, and when is it not advantageous for us to push? And that distinction, we want to really fine tune that so that we maximize our points and we don't miss out on opportunities that are otherwise really good for us, right? So this is why we learn about push forward and why push forward is so important. I'd honestly dare say that at the very highest levels of gameplay, push forward is probably like 70% of the game is just push forward, right? You want to have this is something that you're going to be fine tuning for the rest of Mahjong. But today we're just going to go through some baseline examples of push forward. Okay, so how do we, when we're judging push forward, we want to, so the goal for today, for today's slides, is we want to know, you know, what do we play for? What do we play? What do you kind of play for when we're playing today? When we're playing games, sorry. In what situations do we push? Or in what situations do we fold? We want to identify those situations. And the key objective idea today is how can we quantify and objectivize a position so that we can make the same decisions each and every time, right? Push fold is not really push fold if you're going like, oh, this feels bad, I'm gonna fold here, or oh, this feels strong, so I'm gonna push here. That's not actual push fold. That's something in professional terminology, that's something we call play by feel. We don't really want to do that. We want to be able to objectively identify, are we pushing here? Are we folding here? And a system. We want to develop some kind of system that we can do to sort of identify, is it better to push or fold? So that's the goal of the slides today. Okay, so the equation. And this is a very important equation, and this is something that you should all keep in mind. The next few slides are going to be a little bit mathy. So by the way, big thanks to Cheese, who gave me a lot of, helped me make the slides and sort of gave me feedback on things. And one thing Cheese said was like, all of this math just flies through my head, like flies over my head, like this is super weird, but like we'll get there. The next few slides are going to be a little bit math heavy, but it will get simplified down the road. Okay, so the expected value of a single round, right, is just this, right? So for those of you who are not too math savvy, this is pretty much how you calculate the expected value of anything, right? It's the probability of that thing happening times whatever that value of that thing is. This is pretty much how you calculate EV in anything, right? So if you win like $1, if you get heads and lose $1, when you get tails, how do you quantify the expected value of that? You do 0.5 times $1 minus 0.5, which is the amount, minus 0.5 times 1, which is 0, as you'd expect. I'm sorry, going on a tangent. Anyways, so this is how you calculate the thing. So each expected value of every hand you participate, every hand you win, this is your expected winnings, right? Winnings. And this is your expected loss. And this has two components. Expected loss. Sorry, my handwriting is going to be messy because I'm lots to go through and I'm going to try to go through these as quickly as possible. That component is when they sumo over here. When an opponent sumos. And when you deal in, right? There's two ways to lose points in this game. It's if you deal in or if the opponent sumos, right? Notice that winning a hand affects both sides of this equation. So if you increase your win rate, it increases your expected winnings, but it also decreases the opponent's sumo rate and your deal-in rate, because you cannot deal in, or the opponents cannot win, if you win. So the most efficient way to maximize this expected value of a round would actually be to maximize your win rate over here. If you increase your average score by 10%, it does nothing for this part of the equation, your expected loss. So that's going to affect it some way or another, right? But if you increase your in rate by 10%, and I'm not talking about 10 percentile points, 10 percentage points, that would be crazy. But if you increase your win rate from 20% to 22%, then the 80% of the times that you lost will get decreased to 78% of the time that you lost. So your expected winnings go up, and your expected loss goes down as well. So an increase in win rate actually has a much more dramatic effect to this equation than any other part of it, honestly. Okay. All right, starting immediately off the WWID, right? We can go for last minute, and big shout out to Cheese for last minute changes for this. This is why I was a little bit late starting. So I'll give you guys a few minutes on this. Let's say, wow, shouldn't be that hard. So I'll give you guys like a minute to think about. All right, pretty obvious one. Should be fairly easy. So other WWIDs, you can either, I don't mind if you guys just call it out in voice, because yeah, so we tried the stage thing up above, and then like I'm not really a fan of like nobody else gets to speak, because this is a workshop, it's meant to be interactive, we're meant to sort of discuss things together. Someone named it a sweatshop, what the heck? Okay, but yeah, I don't mind if you guys just call it out in voice. If you obviously also, while I'm doing this, if you guys have questions, then just like call it out as well. But like otherwise, you can just sort of say it in that voice chat over there. The voice chat over there answers for future WWIDs. This one, I think everyone's pretty happy. So I think most people already came to the conclusion, right, that 2-pin should be discarded over here, right? But why, right? I'm not sure. Have we all considered why, right? It feels right, but what's the objective reason why we should be cutting 2-pin? By the way, this is the Riichi, SSK, Dora, which is 8K, or Riichi, Pinfu, Dora, for 3,900. Right, so it's half the value. Which one do we take? And the answer is, so the answer over here. Remember the equation. Expected value is win rate times the average score minus lose rate times the average point loss, right? So if we just say win rate is WR, S is our average score, and then our lose rate becomes 1 minus win rate, right? This is what I mean. So if we discard the 5-pin, it does double our value from 3,000, more than double actually, 3,000, but roughly doubles our value to 3,900 to 8,000. So if you look at that, it will double our value, the score, S, but it halves the win rate, because instead of 3 6-pin, you're now waiting on just a 3-pin over here, right? So because of that, if you actually take that into consideration, this just simplifies down to the half multiplies with the 2 to just give you the exact same winnings. Remember, this is your winning score. Winnings, right? But then if you look at this side of the equation, your expected point loss, you realize that because you've actually halved the win rate, the whole loss rate increased, right? Normally it'd just be 1 minus win rate, but it's now your actual expected point loss has increased, which means that the whole losings has increased while your winnings has decreased, right? Sorry, your winnings is constant. It didn't decrease. It is absolutely constant. So overall, you're going to be gaining less points if you do actually take this Sanshoku over here. So this is why we want to maximize win rate as much as possible, and we want to maximize having good shapes and wide shapes, right? And it also shows you the importance, right? So your own hand is not just the value. It shows you that the value of your own hand, you shouldn't just consider your own hand when you're considering the value of your own hand. You also need to consider this side of the equation. And this side of the equation is what people tend to neglect a lot. Your expected loss. You're not just trying to increase your expected points. You want to also decrease the expected loss in order to overall get the most amount of points. Okay. So, so far, review, what have we learned? Increases the win rate is hugely impactful. First to Tenpai is powerful because if you win, you can't lose. You won't lose by sumo, you won't lose points by sumo, and you won't lose points by run if you just win. So first to Tenpai and being able to end the round is very powerful. And there is a cost to folding. If we fold, then we're not just getting away from it for free. We're going to be losing points due to the expected sumo loss. So when we are trying to calculate push fold, we have to consider that you're going to have two sides of the equation, sumo loss and run loss. And while if you fold, you sort of erase this run loss side, you're also increasing your sumo loss because the expected chance of sumo, right? Chance of sumo increases over here, which is part of the equation. So there is absolutely a cost to folding. And in general, this is a very blanket statement that we'll come back to later. If we are in Tenpai, shove. We want to push absolutely everything. Alright. So, value of Tenpai. How valuable is our Tenpai? Well, normally, you can only sumo one tile per turn, right? One tile per turn, sorry. Not once per turn. But you only get one tile per turn when you are sort of playing the game normally and you're staying closed, right? But when you're actually Tenpai, not only can you win off your own sumo, which is one tile, you also have 3 different tiles from your Shimocha, Toyomen, and Kamicha that you can win off of. So every cycle of one turn gives you 1, 2, 3, 4 opportunities to win. So on a very blanket level statement, then you actually have almost 4 times the number of tiles you can win off of effectively. Your acceptance is sort of quadruples when you're Tenpai. So you're getting a 4 times deal over here, right? So Tenpai in general, right? So let's consider the case of a Ramen, right? Let's say you have a 3-4 pin. Let's see if I can draw this. You have a 3-4 pin. 3-4 pin and a 3-4 so bamboo squigglies. Right? So you have these 3-4 pins and 3-4 so Ramen, Ishanten, right? How many acceptance do you have in total? You have 4 tiles here, 4 tiles here, 4 tiles here, 4 tiles here. 4 32. Right? Sorry, 16. Wait. Yeah, 16 tiles in total, right? But let's just consider a single Ramen and your Tenpai. Let's say you're 5-pin filled. Or you're 2-pin filled because 2-pin's easier to draw. Right? Let's say you now filled your 2-pin. This normally has 8 tiles left in total, but remember, when you're Tenpai, you get a 4 times deal. So you get 8 tiles times 4, which is actually 32 tiles in total. Right? So in fact, on average, again, there's going to be all these like caveats and asterisks and assumptions of like people are going to fold, people are going to play, people aren't going to play more efficient tiles, etc., yada, 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 yada. So like the actual win rate is below this calculation, obviously. But just as a blanket rough calculation standpoint, you're actually going to be twice as fast winning your Tenpais than you are getting to Tenpai in the first place, right? I've discussed this in our previous lecture, well, not lecture, workshop, of the idea of peak Ishanten tier theory, because we're going to be spending the most amount of time in Ishanten than we are at Tenpai. This is an extension of that. Tenpai in general, so let's say you'll have full value at Tenpai. Overall, out of the 48 tiles in total that you have, if you add this and this up, 16, which is 1/3. You only get 1/3 of the tiles in the end, right? So, sorry, this is a similar calculation, but let's say you're going head to head, Ramen against Ramen with someone else, right? In that calculation, you'll be drawing your winning tile before them, right? 50% of the time. However, if you're like a Ramen Ishanten against someone that is Tenpai already, they have 32 tiles, you have 16 tiles. So overall, you're going to be drawing your 16 tiles first before them 1/3 of the time, right? And then you have a 50-50 chance to win after that, after you draw your tile, right? Which is 1 in 6, right? So your value at Ishanten is like pretty much just a 1/6 of the value of the hand at Tenpai, almost, pretty much. So, as you can see, I pulled this graph off of somewhere. I don't actually even know where this graph has come from. Like, this is such an old resource for me that this is the one thing that I don't know where this source is from. Like, this gets thrown around absolutely everywhere, not just me. Source, it came from me in a dream. But yeah, as you can see, right, pretty much at Tenpai, expected value push. The assumption is pushing against the Riichi, a dealer Riichi, when there's 5 visible Dora and 3 in your hand. So like the dealer doesn't have any Dora, so it's almost always going to be hugely favorable. But at Tenpai, you're basically always pushing, but the expected value drops dramatically the moment you get to Ishanten. Remember, dealer has 0 Dora in their hand, and you have the rest of the Dora, right? This is a situation that doesn't even happen often, so I don't even know why this gets thrown around a lot. But even in this such a wildly favorable scenario, pushing against a Riichi as dealer, right, sorry. Thanks, Jaffa, for catching that. As dealer, when there's 5 visible Dora and 3 in your hand, right? So, 5 visible Dora with 3 of them in your hand. So there's still 2 more Dora in play, and you have 3 of them. Anyways, not that important. The point is, even in a very, very hugely favorable situation, your dealer, you have 3 Dora in your hand. Expected value hits close to 0 already at Ishan 10, even in that favorable situation, right? It drops dramatically from Tenpai. So I really want to drill this in your head, drill this in the head. First to Tenpai is hugely powerful. First to Tenpai is powerful. Increases to win rate is hugely impactful. And if Tenpai, push. Right? The slider actually had some important stuff in here, right? So Tenpai is 6 times more valuable than Ishan 10. All these factors combined basically tells you how much valuable Tenpai is compared to Ishan 10, right? So let's consider other scenarios. This is from Statistical Mahjong. Link at the end of the slides. But, so this gray line over here shows you the win rate of a non-Suji, bad shape, 3-7 Tenpai, literally the worst. The worst. Can't get any worse than that. The worst Tenpai you can get versus a sticky Ishan 10. So if you guys remember from last side, a sticky Ishan 10 or a Kutsuki Ishan 10, right? Kutsuki Ishan 10 is the shapes where you have 2 floaters with connect 4, right? So not only do you have 2 floaters randomly, because this tile is connected to a 4 on the other side, you are pretty much having 3 floaters. This is literally the best. Literally the best Ishan 10. Doesn't get better than that. And then you can still see, even then, from row 2 onwards, even before row 2 hits, win rate plummets, right? The value of the Ishan 10 plummets down significantly, right? So, yeah, all this to say, Tenpai, very important deal, very powerful, lots of value. Ishan 10, not so much, right? Don't value Ishan 10s so much. Alright, so, how are we going to decide then when to push, when to fold? Memorize this chart. Alright, end the slides, thank you very much. Alright, I'm kidding. So we do have this chart over here of like when it's advantageous to push and or when to fold. But realistically speaking, no one's going to literally remember every cell of this thing and then just do it by this. Firstly, that would be wrong because there's a lot of situational cases in Mahjong that push sorted to one direction to another. And these kind of like rigid charts don't explain the full nuance and details of things. And secondly, like that's just inhuman. Like, we're not machines. We can't memorize this, right? But we can memorize, or not memorize, we can recognize patterns, right? We can recognize a lot of patterns by pushing this. Firstly, we recognize, so this is non-dealer Riichi as dealer. I don't know if this is probably really small for you guys to see, but this is as dealer, right? And pretty much as dealer, most scenarios we're just full shoving, full sending all the way, right? Ishanten, Tenpai, whatever, we'll full shoving, right? Only in like really bad Ishanten scenarios are we actually considering folding. But so this column over here, this last column over here, is double Musuji, double Musuji. So in case you don't know what Musuji means, it means not Suji. Literally, it means that in Japanese. So it's not Suji. So double Musuji, aka these are the Musuji 4, 5, 6. It can deal into either Rammen. This column, the second column over here, is the Musuji 2, 3, 7, 8. And basically the Suji column, blanket statement, right? Blanket statement. You can see basically in all three of these chart, the Suji column is pretty much like the light green is like it's folding favored, but you can see that there's no like you absolutely have to fold this thing. This is terrible. You should just fold, right? It doesn't happen all too much. That's like 2 here. When you're pushing into a dealer as a non-dealer, and this is a Riichi Nomi. Sorry, it's a Nomi. So 1 hand Nomi with a very bad weight. 2 tiles left, bad weight, single tile weight. In those like really extreme scenarios, you'd be folding Tenpai. But you can see, firstly, at Tenpai, you're just not folding. You're just very rarely ever folding at Tenpai, if you notice. At Tenpai, you are very rarely folding much. And you can see most of the folding action happens right here at Ishanten, pushing a non-Suji tile, right? So that's the first observation. Second observation is you see this blue lines over here. As I mentioned, this is the Nomi. So 1 han, very bad weight. 2 tile left weights. In these scenarios, in a lot of cases, you are folding. Unless you're dealer, then if you're dealer, you got free reign to do whatever. So yeah, we can observe a couple things, right? But after that, it sort of becomes a very general mess, right? Firstly, we observe that pushing at Tenpai is pretty correct, and folding, right? In what scenarios does it actually tell you to push at Ishanten? When you are Mangan with a really good weight, right? This is a perfect Ishanten, as in Rammen pair and the Rammen. A headless Ishanten, again, even better than perfect Ishanten, usually, yeah. And a Kutsuki Ishanten, which is even better than a perfect, right? So in those like extremely good scenarios, when you are 4 han, right, you are pushing, right? You are advised to push. But at Ishanten, you can see you're generally folding. At Tenpai, you are generally pushing. Those 2 blanket statements definitely do hold. We can see that from this chart, right? But in all other these edge case scenarios, the light greens, the yellows, the oranges, right? How are we going to do that? Are we just going to memorize all edge cases? Well, let's not do that, okay? Let's actually, and this is the math heavy part that she's told me about, okay? Let's actually do some calculations, okay? So, we can see an average score of, this is average score of dealer hand, and this is the average score of non-dealer hand. You can see it roughly averages around 6,000 for non-dealer, and dealer is obviously 1.5 times that of non-dealer, which is 9,000 points. You can see that kind of holds. It depends on how many Doras in play, whatever. You guys can, but like, again, I don't know about you guys, I hate memorizing. I'm not going to memorize these charts. You can what you do is you have a baseline average, and then you sort of adjust depending on situation, right? Oh, you see like there's no Dora. People's hands are generally going to be more expensive. You see all 7 Dora. People's hands are generally going to be crap, right? You sort of adjust from the average. Okay, you don't actually memorize these charts. I don't do that. Maybe someone does. That's too brain hurty for me, right? Okay, so let's consider a 2,000 point hand, Tenpai. Okay, so we are tenpai on a Ryanmen, right? A non-dealer Riichi is 6,000 points. So remember, we have to consider sumo loss. A sumo loss would be 1,500 on sumo and 6,000 points on deal and loss, right? So that's what we're fighting against when someone else reaches and you have a 2,000 point tenpai Ryanmen. Do we push or do we fold? Well, rough calculation, 50% of the time, 50% of the time that you lose, okay, it will be by sumo, right? So that sumo loss times chance, right? Remember, this is how we calculate EV whenever we do, which is 750 sumo loss average. If we take that away from a winning hand, the hand has around about 12,500 points pushing value, pushing strength, let's say. Or if you want to use a fancy word, it has 2,500 pushing equity. Okay. So, when is that pushing equity equal? When does that equal to the loss on deal-in, right? Well, if we divide that pushing equity, right, by how much we deal in, if it balances out, right? Remember that equation, right? It's pushing deal in loss, right, is equal to chance to deal in times the value on dealing in. We've already locked this to 6,000 points, right? And we already have decided that our deal in loss is 1,250, right? So we want to figure out at what chance does it not equal and it starts being, this deal in loss starts becoming higher, right? So we just kind of divide it on both sides and then you get 20% deal in rate. 20% is like double Musuji with like barely any Sujis remaining. Like no tile becomes 20% deal in rate. No tile ever in the game becomes 20% deal in rate. So you get the conclusion of shove everything when you're tenpai. And you can see, if you're on a good weight, this is the non-dealer chart, by the way. So this is the non-dealer chart. If it's on a good weight, even on a 1,000 point hand, you shove everything. Even on, if you have Riichi Pinfu, so +1, then you shove everything. You can see, kind of works, right? Okay, now let's consider a little bit more of a nuanced case, right? Same scenario. You have a non-dealer Riichi, 6,000 points, 1,500 loss, sumo, and 6,000 on deal-in. And we have to consider the point that I said, tenpai has 6 times the value of Ishan 10. Or the inverse, Ishan 10 has 1/6 the value of tenpai. Let's consider that a hand is Riichi Pinfu +2, Riichi Pinfu Dora 2, or Riichi Pinfu Sanshoku, whatever. You have two extra Han, which is 7,700. Round to 8 for 8,000 for easy calculation, right? So if you do 8,000 divided by 6, you get 1,333 value of your current hand at Ishan 10, roughly speaking, right? You can see even a Mangan hand diminishes even more than this 2,000 point hand tenpai, right? So just a quick note, right? Okay, how much pushing power do we have with the 1,333 pushing equity, right? Again, same calculation, subtract the 750 point loss on deal in, divide it, and then you get the answer 9.7% deal in rate, which is roughly a single Musuji mid to late game. So this over here, my friends, are the single Musuji column, if you remember, and we're considering the Pinfu +2 case. Yeah, and you can see early. Shove. Mid, fold favor. Late, fold. Right? Early, mid, late. Middle, yellow, I believe, is just like neutral, right? So you can see it's exactly holding on, right? 9.7 deal-in rate is the time that you are meant to consider folding. If it goes higher than 9.7, you fold. AKA if it goes late into the late game, you are folding. Middle game, where it's around about hitting 9.7, it's neutral, balanced. And then, so if it's middle, right? If it's neutral, then you start considering other factors like, what's the current point situation? Point situation, right? If you are in all last 4th place, for example, you'd heavily consider pushing, even if it's neutral. Or even South 3, and you want to gain placement. If you're in 1st place or something in South 3, then you'd favor folding, things like that. You start later on, not when you don't know how to do this, but later on, you start considering what are the discards looking like. Discards looking like. And then that weighs in a little bit here and there. So it's when it's neutral when you get nuances like this, right? But yeah, as you can see, baseline calculation gives us pretty much exactly what this chart tells us. Remember, a single Suji, even the early game, has 1 in 18. There's 18 different Suji. So a double Musuji is 1 in 9, which is 11.11111% chance of dealing in. You can see it's higher than the 9.7 figure. So even early game, double Musuji is neutral to folding. So you can see it clearly holds fairly well. Okay. I know what you're thinking. How the fuck do you even calculate this while you're in game? Right? You have 20 seconds on Mahjong, so you have 20 seconds. On Tenho, you have 10 seconds to consider all these factors. How do you even do these calculations? The answer is you can't, okay? Maybe you're super smart and you can do all these calculations in your head very quickly. Answer is you probably can't do it, okay? So, we need to generalize. We need to generalize further. So, and here is where we get to the meat of today's slides, the rule of thumb. This is pretty much this is the title of every slide from now on, rule of thumb. So yeah, rule of thumb. If Tenpai, shove everything. We've shown time and time again, if Tenpai, shove everything. Pretty much holds basically everywhere. Only this line over here. Right? Riichi Nomi, a Nomi hand, a one-hand hand, with a very bad weight. 2 tiles left. Are we considering folding? Everything else, we're just shoving. Okay? If we're 2 Shanten, full fold. Okay? Anything above 2 Shanten, not even worth it. Don't bother. I don't care if you have a Hanuman, I don't care if you have a Mangan, Hanuman, Baiman, okay? Even a Yakuman, don't care, fold, okay? It doesn't matter. Okay, you're not gonna get there. All you're doing is risking yourself dealing in. Remember, deal in is 4 times the value of sumo loss, okay? I don't care at that point. You don't want to risk a 4 times loss, then you really have to. The E Shanten is the interesting area, because sometimes you're pushing, right? Sometimes you are pushing. Sometimes, a lot of times, you're folding. Chitoy. Fuck Chitoy. Right? Non-Yunmen, bad weights. We'll get to this area, but you can see, even on good weights, right? Half the time you're folding, half the time you're pushing. What do we do? Ishanten is the critical place. It's where we draw the line, right? Right. So, rule of thumb. Rule number 1, win rate is king, right? A Mangan hand with a Ryanmen weight, okay, going up against another person's Riichi, right? You have a 50% chance of winning that AK hand, and 25% chance of sumo loss, 25% chance of run loss, right? Comes out to around about 2,000 points EV. If you have a single weight, drops all the way down to 166. You're still favored, just not that much, right? So win rate is king. When you are fighting someone else, you always want to have high win rate. Okay, rule number 2. Value is doubled before Mangan, right? So I don't know what scoring sheet you guys like to use. I think this is probably the most clear scoring sheet that I found. But and I'll tell you this right now. There's a lot of popular requests that I do a scoring workshop. We'll probably do that sometime soon. But for those of you who don't know, Riichi scoring goes something along the lines of Fu times Han. Oh, sorry. I do not have an eraser. I do have an eraser. There we go. Okay. So Riichi scoring is Fu to the times 2 to the power of Han plus C, let's say. I don't actually remember what this number is. I'm pretty sure it's C equals 4. Technically it's 2 to the power of Han without the plus C factor. Because and that's like this loss over here, non-dealer sumo loss. And then you multiply by 2, multiply 2 round, and then do rounding, whatever. Bullshit shenanigans, we're not going to talk about that. But mathematically, it's Fu to the power of, Fu times 2 to the power of Han is basically it, right? So this tells you, right, for every Han increase, you're multiplying the value by 2, up to Mangan. Mangan is your limit hand. Okay, Mangan is your limit hand. So, each Han increase going from, oh wait, this way, going from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and 3 to 4 is double value. Meanwhile, check out from 4 to 5. You all know the 4 to 5, infamous 7,700 to 8,000. It's basically piss all, right? It doesn't increase. What about 4 to 6, right? Let's just go, or 5 to 6, okay? Honestly, we should consider 4 to 6, okay? Going from 4 to 6 makes it 7,700 to 12,000 points, which is a little bit over 1.5 times, right? So 2 Han gives you 1.5 times more value. And this holds true from 6 to 7, 6 to 8. It's even worse going from Baiman to Sanbaiman, but we basically don't reach this point, right? So 1 Han increases after the limit hand, or after 4 Han to be exact, gives you like 1.24 blah 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 blah. Okay, like it's like dog shit compared to anything before Mangan. So value is doubled before Mangan. Value after Mangan for each Han increase is garbage. Don't even bother. Okay? Rule number 3. The earlier you get to Tenpai, the higher your chances of winning is. Okay, and again, you might be like, well, no shit, duh. Okay? But it also means, remember our magic equation, your EV is your chance times value. Okay? If you increase your chance, it increases the EV. So your hand is more valuable at the start than it is at the end, towards the end. So as you can see, this is from SMS, Statistical Mahjong Strategy. Turn 5, this is like Ryanmen. This is like a Ryanmen Riichi or something. You have 68% chance on turn 5 to win. And then on turn 8, it decreases to 57. And then on turn 12, it decreases again to 42. So, as you might expect, your chances of winning goes down the further away turns it is. So, your hand is more valuable at the start, basically. Okay. So, with all 3 of those factors combined, what conclusion can we reach? We have this handy little chart over here. Okay. So, let's say we're going to use some kind of point system, right? We get 1 point for being 1 point if you're attack favored, and you get -1 point if you're defense favored, right? So, shape, Ryanmen, right? A Ryanmen Ishanten, remember we're just talking about Ishanten from here on out. Ryanmen Ishanten is attack favored, or anything better than that, right? So anything like a complete Ishanten, so like a 2-2-3, 2-3 shape, right? Complete Ishanten is better. A headless, right? We've talked about this in the first slide. Or Kutsuki. Kutsuki/sticky. Any of these are better than a Ryanmen, which is like Ryan, which is like the top of good weights, basically. It is like the worst out of all the good weights. Okay, so anything better than Ryanmen is attack favored. If you are less than that, if you have some kind of Kanchan shape, even if it's complete, yeah, even if it's like 2-2-4, sorry, that's what I visualize in my head. If it's 2-2-4-2-3, then if you draw the 4-man side, you're gonna have a bad shape left over here, right? So if you have, remember, win rate is king. We want to maximize our win rate at Tenpai. So if you have a possible bad shape weight, then the pushing becomes a little bit less favorable for you, so it becomes neutral. And if it's always bad shape, if it's like 1-2 Penchan and a 5-7 Kanchan, right? Then you should think to yourself, well, fuck my life, right? So you are defense favored, usually. Alright, what about value? We want to consider our value as well. Using point number 2, value is doubled before Mangan. We need to consider that point increases from 1 Han to 2 Han, 2 Han to 3 Han, 3 Han to 4 Han is very impactful. Each Han doubles. So if you're closed 3 Han or open 4 Han, if you have that much hand value, then again 3 Han, you've doubled your hand 2 times. Your hand is starting to get you're in the range of you're starting to get pretty big. Closed obviously has more value because you got Menzen Sumo and the opportunity to Riichi. Open 4 hand is just 7,700, so like, you know, it's big, right? If you have a big hand, then you're attack favored. Neutral is around about open 3 Han, not closed 2 Han. Closed 2 Han is starting to get on the low side, right? 2,000 points. It's kind of a rounding error, it's kind of a fuck all kind of thing. So closed 2 Han is not that good. So open 3 Han, 3,900 plus basically is what this is saying. You're around about neutral. Or roughly in the ballpark of 3,900. And then defense favored, 2 Han or less. Your hand is starting to get into the territory of fuck all. You want to sort of curve it back and play a bit more defensively. Again, may I emphasize this is all at Ishanten. Okay, I'm talking about at Ishanten. Fighting someone else, Tenpai. This is the decision when someone else is already Tenpai. Okay? I'm not telling you to fold 2 Han hands when there's nothing going on the board, okay? That's not my intention. Someone else needs to be Tenpai and you're deciding whether you want to push or fold. Okay? Alright, so when else are you attack favored? Using rule number 3, your hand is more valuable the earlier turn you are. Around about turn 5, before row 1 ends, we consider early. No one should be, we consider early. Not many Suji would have passed. And you still have a lot more leniency for you to sort of build your hand and win. Neutral is, we can define the turn 6 to 8 range, early second row, where it's starting to get a little bit dicey. And then turn 9 plus, for those of you who don't know, turn 9 is the turn that is the average Tenpai per round, is usually around about turn 9. So around about turn 9, where things are starting to get into the late game, you are more incentivized to fold. Any questions? We've covered a lot. Anyone have anything they want to speak up about? Not even just like points that they want to mention or questions or any comments. Everyone all clear? All satisfied? Alright. So that is our rule of thumb for what we're going to do in terms of our push forward. From here on out, it's just a whole bunch of WWIDs. Alright, so WWID number 1. What do we play over y'all? So, those of you who can't see Chinese, speak Japanese, sorry, this is the Dora. Dora is 9-man, you don't have any Dora in your hand. And you have something that is starting to look like, Riichi Pinfu. Riichi Pinfu, no Dora. But you do have 2 Ramen, so... What do we do? Give you guys a couple minutes. Everyone have an answer? Anyone wanna shout it out or something? Anyone or mention in chat? $8p, $8p. We got an $8p answer. Alright. Never mind, he deleted it. Yeah, AP is safe. AP is over here. So just yeah, everyone happy with folding? Anyone want to push? Alright. Again, this is meant to be like a group interactive thing, so if anyone wants to just call out, just call out. Alright. Okay, so again, going back to these rule of thumb stuff, this slide is hugely messy now. Jesus, let me just... Okay, so yeah, so going back to this, again, good shape, possible bad shape, right? Margin of 3 Han cut line, and again, this turn over here, early, middle, or late. So applying that, right, we have the decision to 8-pin and fold over here, right? You have Ramen Ishan 10 for, so that's good weight. Good weight is a +1 tick mark. Riichi Pinfu is 2 Han, which is less than the 3 Han requisite. So that's a -1. And turn 9, this is exactly on that borderline turn 9, right? So this is -1 for a total -1. Because -1, we are folding favored. And we want to... sorry, I lost my pen for a second. Okay. So it's folding favored, and we sort of fold with, instead of folding with something like 8 so for example, we fold with the pair, because let's say we draw either one of 6 man or 1 pin, and then the other one becomes safe later on, we can sort of go back to pushing. Mahjong is not a black and white thing where if it's one thing, it's that one thing forever. The situation can always change. You got to be very fluid and proactive. Right now, it's folding favored. Later on, it could be pushing favored. We want to choose the tile that is most likely for us to get back to Tenpai. Well, not back to Tenpai, but get to Tenpai. Alright. Next one. Give you guys 40 seconds until 36:40. Okay, 36:40. Answers, anyone? Or is that too short? That might be a little too short. I'll give you guys a couple more seconds. Alright. 8 so fold from someone. Any other answers? Honestly, I do kind of feel lonely here. I might as well have been using the stage if no one's gonna talk. Everyone happy with 8 so? 8 so fold? Going once, going twice. Alright, let's see. Oh, people are typing. No one's typing. Alright. Someone else says 8 pin. Let's see. Alright, 8 pin push. If we consider, this is a complete Ishan 10. Again, 5-6 and a 3-3-4. So it's a +1 tick for us. Riichi Tanya for 2 Han, which is a -1. But it is early on. Not many tiles has passed yet. And again, more chance to draw tiles and for you got a higher win rate if you do get to Tenpai compared to if it's later on. So in this case, we are full shoving everything, right? Even if we do drop the 8 so right now, there's no guarantee that we can really keep folding later on because there's not really that many tiles we can work off of early on as well. So it's even more favored towards shoving here. Okay. Question 3.
It might be worth clarifying. This is East 1 versus non-dealer as non-dealer, yes?
Yeah, yes. Non-dealer, non-dealer. Assume flat points. So this guy is dealer, but like he's always going to be irrelevant. So yeah, just non-dealer versus non-dealer situation. Dealer, you can always just assume 1.5 times points and sort of alter your inner processes, inner calculations. Okay. Right, so SVT already said the answer already. Oh, did I go back? Oh, whoops. Haha, the slides are a little bit screwed. But yeah, it's Tenpai. Yeah. Wait, what? Yeah, 5-pin sumo. Your tenpai waiting on 2 5-pin. If tenpai, we shove. Shove, shove, shove. We don't care. Right? All of the things that we were talking about is just it's just when we are tenpai, not when we're Ishan 10. Doesn't apply at tenpai. So a bit of a trick question. By the way, all of these questions and slides and points and this like push shove system at Ishan 10 is made by Genki Hirasawa. So full credit goes to him pretty much for most of these stuff. Where was I going with that? So yeah, Genki Hirasawa slides, not slides in WWIDs, not mine. But like, yeah, if Genki Hirasawa felt the need to felt the need to add a trick question, then I'm gonna add a trick question as well. Alright. Anyone? Do we have an answer for this? We are Ishan 10 to Chitoi. What do you reckon? Ishan 10 to Chitoi. We got Dora 2, so it's Chitoi Dora 2. Massive value. 6,400. Could be a Hanamani for Riichi. Do we push? Do we fold? What do we do? Suji 3P? Hate so. Orange tinted green 3P? No clue what that means, but so the answer here is full folding. It is 3P is Suji, but it is a 3-7 Suji, not that reliable. We still got the 1-2 Penchan that we can consider. Not that great. Especially, you have 400 plus value, again, Chitoi Dora 2, but very big. But guaranteed bad weight, right? Tunky weight. So that's a -1. So we're plus minus 0. And this turn 9, so it's already plus -1. But this is even worse than normal bad Ishan 10s, right? If you even consider, because like, even consider like things like 224, right? 224, 3-4, and like an 8-8 on some side, right? Then we consider this to be a -1, right? Because it can leave behind the bad shape, 2-4. But this has like 1, 2, right? This has 1, 2, 3 tiles, and even 4 tiles, kinda, right? Worth of acceptance for 32 tiles. 32 tiles of acceptance. While Chitoi, right? You have to draw 3 different Tankis exactly, each of them with 3 tiles left for 9 tiles, right? It's even on a normal 0, right? Oh, sorry, this is like it can be a good weight. Okay, let's make this a 3-5, right? Lose 4 tiles for 28 tiles, right? Right. So this would be a -1, right? This would be a -1 anyways, but it still has 28 tiles worth of acceptance. Meanwhile, Chitoi Ishan has 9 tiles. So that's like a third of the acceptance. It's like even worse than normal. Like, you guys know how bad Chitoi Ishan 10 is, right? Chitoi Ishan 10 feels horrible, right? So this is even worse than the normal bad Ishan 10. So Chitoi is really, really, really bad in terms of Ishan 10 acceptance. So this is like it's even worse than a -1. It's almost like a -2 in fact, for being a bad weight, right? So in this case, we don't even risk the 3-pin Suji, we just full fold with 8080. All right. I think we got like 2 more questions or something. As we go, obviously things are gonna get more and more nuanced. So, give plenty of thoughts. I will give you more time. 46 exactly on the dot right now. Maybe we'll go up to 48 or so. Give you guys 2 minutes to think about this. Normally in game, you guys have like 20 seconds. Let's see, we got Riichi. Riichi bad weight, right? So it could be a Ramen on 4-7 but it could be the Kanchan on the Ryankan side. I don't want to explain the point system myself, but yeah, I can see an SSK on the 4-5-6. Dora, we have 2 Dora in the hand, so we got plenty. We got Dora 2 and possible SSK with Riichi. Oh, wait, sorry, that's no. We got no Dora. 9-man is the Dora, not the Dora indicator. My bad. I'm super terrible at these because I keep thinking the Dora is the Dora indicator. So it's just Riichi SSK. What do we do? And it could be a bad weight, and it's turn 6. All right, 48. Answers. We got 9 so fold. We got 6-pin full fold. Oh, 9 so fold. Never mind. 9 so is Genbetsu as well. 9 so, 8 so, and 6-pin are all Genbetsu. Yep, looks like we're all collapsing onto 9 so. Yep, 9 so fold. So it is the can be Kanchan, can be a bad weight for a ±0 and turn 6, which is ±0 exactly. So let's speak about the value. I already said that there is the Riichi SSK. If you draw the 5-pin side, you got 4-7-man for Riichi Pinfu SSK, right? Riichi Pinfu SSK, which is 4-han. Oh shit, we got a 4-han hand. Full shove, right? But if you think about it, if you do draw the 5-pin first, we only have a 50% chance of SSK. So you don't actually get the 2-han value of SSK, you only get basically 1-han. Because it's like half of 2-han, which is 1-han value. And that's only, you get 1-han if you draw the 5-pin. What happens if you don't draw the 5-pin, right? If you draw the 4-man, which is going to happen, like 25% of the time, then you're guaranteed SSK, yeah, but you'll have a bad weight. Remember, a bad weight basically more than halves your value. So that's not great either. And you lose Pinfu as well. So it's Riichi, SSK, no Pinfu, 3 Han, and you have a bad weight, right? And what about the 7 man? That's even worse. Now you don't even have Pinfu, and you have bad weight, right? So it's Riichi no Mi, bad weight, right? So overall, yeah, it caps out at 4 Han, but that's assuming if you draw the perfect tiles. You have to look at the average value of the whole hand, and you can clearly see that it's something less than even 2.5 Han if you sort of rigorously calculate it out, right? But just by feel, just by rough sort of estimation, you should be able to see that this is something that is way less than 3 Han. And remember, we said that 3 Han, 3 Han Menzen is the point where it is attack favored. So it's overall, this is a -1. So net -1, we favor folding. So we fold with 9 so first because we can get back to Tenpai on like 3, 6, 9. So we got a 3-sided weight. So if we actually do manage to draw the 5 pin later on, then it becomes a lot easier to push in the future. Again, keep the hand flowing, keep the hand alive. You don't need to cut 6 pin first or something. But it is like a rounding error, honestly, at this point. Okay. Let's see. 9 mon is the Dora, so 1 mon is not Dora. Don't be like me. Right. We have Hatsu Pon over here, and it's Hatsunomi for 1 Han, turn 9. 1 Han Hatsunomi, turn 9. Do we push? Do we fold? So, yeah, not much time, but this one is obvious. If we've talked about a lot in today's slide, we said if we're Tenpai, we shove, right? So we're Tenpai right now, 5/8 man, full send. 1,000 point hand, doesn't matter, Tenpai, full send. Alright, last question. This one's last, I promise. Okay, so we have Riichi Dora 2. Right? So yeah, Riichi Dora 2. We do have this like kanchan kind of shape, which is a little bit awkward, so it can be a bad weight. And then yeah, Riichi Dora 2 can be a bad weight, and it's turn 13. What do we do here? We got an answer of 1 pin. Any other one want to have a crack at it? We got 1 pin fold. So notice 1 pin over here is safe. So we got 1 pin fold. Well, it's pretty weight, so we also have to consider that other people might be in Tenpai. So for example, the only other Genbetsu that we have is this 3-so. Oh, we do have the 7-so as well. Yep. So we have 1 pin fold. We have can be a bad weight, as I mentioned, so it's +0. 3 Han, Rishidora 2, which is a +1. And then it is past turn 9 for -1 support plus minus 0 is what we would say, right? But remember, right, in this chart, what was our rule of thumb in the first place, right? First rule of thumb, win rate is king. Second rule of thumb, value is doubled before one gun. Third rule of thumb, you have more time to win the earlier you are, right? So it says on this chart, turn 5 is +1, turn 6 to 8 is plus minus 0. We define turn 9 plus to be -1, but that's like the cut line for -1, right? We're not at turn 9 anymore. We're not actually at turn 9, we're at turn 13, all the way down to turn 13. This is where we define -1. So in fact, as SBT has said, right? And SBT absolutely nailed it over here. Because we defined we defined this cut line over here as -1. If we're going further, by our rule of thumb, it's not even just that anything past this is all -1. It's a progressive scale, right? Earlier you are, the more favored you are. Later you are, the less favored you are, right? So, in fact, we consider this to be worse, a little bit worse than -1. So, from the plus minus 0, we tip the scales down to be little negative. Little negative. So, we do a 1-pin fold. And we GTFO. Okay. So, that is it for today's slides. Hope that has been insightful for a lot of players. Credits. Push fold chart that I've used at the start. SMS I pulled some numbers from. Most of the calculations are from me because I'm the math nerd here, and as I mentioned, the system, the whole system of push folds, this whole system of like +1, -1, and neutral is that chart is from Genki Hirasawa over here on this post. The slides will of course be available later after the stream, so feel free to go have a look. He explains it more in detail than me. So yeah, if you want to read more, then feel free to go. Well, you'll have to know Japanese, but you know, you guys have Google Translate. Anyways, all right, that's it for today's workshop. Anyone have any questions or comments? Questions or comments so that I can go play PoE after this? Alright, no one? Alright, looks like everyone's all satisfied. Alright, thanks for coming everyone. Hope that helps. And yeah.